Action. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Jawin with Jack. I'm the Jack you're looking for, and I'm all out of bubble gum. With me this week, I got the Dread Scott Roberts, which that's what I nicknamed you in your absence. So, Scotty Wayne, please introduce yourself to the crowd and tell everybody how we know one another.
So I'm Scott Roberts. We actually know each other and have known each other since high school. We were in a role playing group together for a very long time. And I believe you wrote quite a few stories afterwards about a certain character that I played.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yep. And
He
so,
continues to be an active NPC in my campaigns to this day, that character.
yeah, and some of the other wacky ideas I had back then, I also put into play in fifth edition. I got opportunities to do that, so that was kind of cool.
And now,
Um, yeah,
now rewinding on back to it, this is you're the first guest on the show that doesn't have a presence on X, didn't have a handle. I actually wasn't sure what to put in there or to promote, and you don't care about it. None of that.
yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, my social media was for me. I kind of kept it private because I was in the restaurant business for 30 years, and a lot of restaurants don't appreciate when you're friends with the people you work with. So I always kind of kept it on the sly and my name off schedule. And honestly, my the things that I do out there in the community is mostly I'm there. I just appear. I try to support. Um, like I can't tell you when I was in the restaurant business how many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that I spent on Kickstarter backer kit just
It's
to because I truly believed in people's dreams and wanted them to succeed. Um,
absolutely, man, and
And then
that's
when I wasn't working, when I went into construction, my second career, and didn't have that money, I started volunteering at every convention in the area, or attending when I could. But, I it really from just, I couldn't afford the tickets. So volunteering was the best way. And I become a different person when I volunteer, because, being in the service industry for so long, that's who I am. So
so
I
it kind of
enjoy.
kicks you into work mode when you go to a convention and volunteer.
Yeah, yeah. So like those, the few hours that you have to spend volunteering, really, it goes by quick if you enjoy it like that. And plus, it gets me, I meet a lot of different people in the industry. I've met a lot of different people in the
Mhm.
industry, just kind of lurking around, not being anybody. I've myself have written what I don't know, 19, 20, 20 something games for me. I've only
Yes, I'm
I've only
still
shared them with you and a few other people.
I have yet to make my way through the entire folder to read everything. I've been highlighting things, and there's a lot of stuff in there. So now
Yeah,
let's
creating my own game systems, modifying game systems. I was always kind of a systems kind of guy,
kind of
not as
module.
yeah, not as a min maxer, but just into the mechanics that made something work and new and inventive mechanics that really pushes some of my Kickstarter and backer kit because
Yeah, yeah,
some of the games will have one specific mechanic in it that I just thought, man, they deserve to be produce this game because of it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That sounds interesting, and I know that feeling. For me, I'm kind of very much. I'm not much of a home brewer or making my own systems. I like to play games raw. I want to experience the game as the author intended, and each game has a very different experience. Like, we used to play Ars Magica together back in
yes,
the day,
yeah.
and playing a wizard in Ars Magica is a very different experience than playing a wizard in D&D.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think that game could have. I I just one of my more recent Kickstarters is Ars Magica for the new edition that they're putting out. Not new edition. I just think it's a rewrapping of the fifth edition and a new cover and stuff like that. Just because I love the game so much and the memories from us not playing it and
So
rolling out characters and talking about it.
I still have the edition of Ars Magica that we played back in the day. I haven't
Nice.
bought any other version. What edition is that one? I don't even know off the top of my head. It was,
I
I think
believe
it was the
that's
first one
third.
published by White Wolf,
Yes, correct.
which is the
If
third.
I mean, my memories,
Okay.
my memory's crap. You know that. It could be the third edition. The first edition was, it looked like somebody drew it on, hand drew it. I picked up fifth edition when that came out. I just want to see what kind of improvements and stuff they did with the
Mhm.
system.
Oh, see now, Jeremy Hernan spoke in here. It depends on the game. Some games no need to change the rules, but others, yeah, you need to have some tweaks here and there. And I guess that's the thing is if it's flaws I can put up with, but if a system only needs to be changed or altered if it's broken, like it just doesn't work for some reason. Um,
Well,
you
the
know,
way I kind of see it the way you do. I prefer to play rules as written, just because I wanted to experience that rule set as the
right.
creator intended.
Mhm.
But a lot of the games, like I said, I literally backed or kickstarted just because I wanted one mechanic, or one
Yeah,
mechanic I thought was super inventive, or anything Runehammer produces is just crazy inventive, like stuff that comes out of his mind is
I'm
just,
a I'm a big fan of ICRPG
yeah,
myself. That's the one book of his I have, and it's one of my favorites to have in the collection. Another one that's an example of there's a whole lot of game in one little tiny book.
yeah, yeah, for
You know,
sure, for sure.
five
And
settings ready to go. It's a very simple rule set, easy to use, easy to adapt it, and uh, and it's basically familiar. It's still going to have the same conventions of any D20 or D&D version
yeah,
that you've played.
and his creative mind is just, runs at 100 miles a minute. So sometimes watching his YouTube channel is like, I know, like me trying to get something done. Like he's all over the place. It seems like. So I know you usually asked, how do people start in role playing?
That's where I was about to go. Is rewind back to the origin story. How
By the
did
way,
you?
my cup is, if you know, you know. But just out there. How did I
Goes for
start
urine,
in
I
role
thought.
playing? So the crazy thing is, our paths intersected through and throughout this, but never really met until later on. Um, so as a kid, my upbringing, my mother and stepfather were very religious, and I saw, on TV, the big Satanic Panic. I was familiar with the D&D cartoons from, earlier, love of the Hobbit, old Hobbit cartoons, like, um, you know, um, Johnny Quest, Thunder the Barbarian. Like, I was into all those cartoons, so I'd already had that fantasy type mind, and then, they were talking about, like, oh, this certain game, Dungeons and Dragons, will lead to satanic worship and people will die and all that. So I was like, sign me up. That sounds
Classic
wonderful.
80s metalhead kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
classic 80s metalhead. Back then I had hair down to my butt, but I was like, yeah, sign me up for that, man.
I remember
I'm all
what you were
for
like
it.
when we first met.
Yeah. So, I went to Walden Books in Christiana Mall or whatever, looking for Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm sure they had it there. But then, other games caught my eye, like Middle Earth role playing. That was the first game that I purchased myself with my own money, and back then, money for me, I earned
Yeah.
everything, or had to save up money for birthdays or whatever to buy things, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do
so
recall your parents were the kind of allowance. What's that?
yeah, yeah,
Everything you did, you had to work for, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, spend all day out in the field pulling stuff up out of the ground, and they'll pay you $5 for the day or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's
that
what the
I had
point
to weigh my,
like.
I could get this box set, of Middle Earth, which I was super familiar with. I'd read The Hobbit, one of the few books at the time I did read. Like I said, I loved the cartoons, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons other than the old cartoon that was on, and let me go ahead and pick up Middle Earth. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
was actually the first game I
And let's
purchased.
face it, if in the '80s, being a kind of a teenager, if you were looking at the D&D cartoon as well, that's what the game is going to be like. You're like, no, that's a little gay for me. I'm gonna go for Middle Earth or
Um,
Warhammer.
yeah, well, I didn't know anything about Warhammer at all. Like,
Mhm.
you know, so Richie Alexander, who is infamous in our area
in
for
our little
for plenty
tiny
of
town
things.
in New Jersey.
He lived a bike's ride down from me, and when I was younger, we struck up a conversation. He had mentioned that he had played Dungeons and Dragons his whole life, so I rode my bike down there, and here went the tale of Dungeons and Dragons, and he was talking about first edition AD&D,
Mhm.
which was his big game, and he told me all the stories, but he didn't own the book. But I even had old character
But
sheets.
he had all the
He
old
had a
lore.
character sheet,
You're
and
right, but no books anymore. But he
yeah,
had
and
old characters.
memory. So we roll up characters, and I think back then, I wanted to be an elf because in Middle Earth, elves were cooler than
Anything
especially in the
else?
Hobbit. You know, at that time, my fixation and fascination and love for dwarves didn't, I guess, corrupt me until after that.
It
Uh,
hadn't taken root yet.
it hadn't taken root yet, so I was very confused. So I was playing this giant elf, and so he was like, "Hey, let's go over to Days and Nights, and we'll pick up a book." And I think 2E just came out, so when he
Days of
wasn't, yeah,
Nights, man,
yeah,
it
Days
still
and Nights
exists to this day. I'm gonna.
still exists this day. It's moved a few times, but still exists. So he had me take him there because he told me about the beginnings of the conflict simulations club with Mr. Hopkins in high school, where they kind of took it from a board game simulation like Stratego into Dungeons and Dragons with him and his brothers and another guy named Vince Vaughn, who you knew very much. Um,
Actually, not Vince Vaughn. That's the
oh,
actor.
yeah, that's the actor, Vince
Rich Vaughn. So
Rich
listen to the
Vaughn. Sorry.
Rich, which I was going to interject when you were saying that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
from one Rich, you were getting all these legendary stories
yeah,
about
yeah.
the epic first edition campaign and all the awesome stuff that it was, and and I was getting the same thing from another player from the same group, and they, you know, and now see,
Yeah, because yeah,
I
he
wonder if
was
I'm gonna end
talking
up
about
watching this, but both of them are like the two worst players I've ever played with over the years. Like all the worst horror stories I have about D&D come from them.
yeah, yeah. So I went to the conflict simulation. I heard over the loudspeaker, right? Over the loudspeaker in the morning time, conflict simulation. I was like, oh, I know what that is. So I went, down to Hop's room, history class, Latin, whatever. And he was like, took one look at me and was like, we play Warhammer here. It's a hardback edition. It's this amount of money. Can you afford that? Nope. Well, when you can afford that, you can come back and play. And I was like, okay. So I was like, okay. So I start
Sounds
scrimping
like
and
an
saving.
elitist prick to me.
Well, it felt like it at the time, but so I actually had to kind of prove it to him that I would be serious about it. I started saving up money to get the Warhammer book, and in the meantime, I,
Mhm.
you know, became friends with Jason, or was friends with Jason.
Which
Jason was another guy, RIP, Jason Love. He was another guy in our group, and he had a
rest
lot
of his
more
soul.
money than I did, and he purchased a lot more games. So he purchased Doctor Who, 007, like anything that we were interested in. We were
So
buying all these crazy
he would
games that you could
buy
find at
all the
Walden's
games.
books. What's that?
Yeah, he would buy all the games, and around the time we met, you were into Warhammer. You had gotten into Warhammer, and it's also what I was playing in
Yes.
the daily game.
Well, the reason
Lunchtime
I
was
knew where Days of Night was is because I was supposed to show up to my first Saturday role playing game because I couldn't play during lunch because of Warhammer. But I got invited to the Saturday game where Mr. Jack McCarthy was running Star Wars. And I was like, okay, man, Star Wars. I can definitely get into that,
that
you
was
know?
where I made my mark in the conflict simulation club.
So I get there and I'm all psyched up about it, and Jack doesn't show up. So Mr. Hopkins took us all on a field trip from his house to Days of Night. So I learned where it was, told Richie about it. Richie drove right there, bought 2E. We started messing around with that. And, I bought the soft cover edition because finally Warhammer came out with soft cover edition,
Yeah,
something I could afford. So I bought that.
yeah.
Got into maybe 2 or 3 games at lunchtime before it all split up because I think it was like the end of the year, and all
Yeah,
those
it was
guys
close to
like,
the end of the year, and
yeah.
then unfortunately we got split up on our lunch times, so we didn't get the game together in senior year. But
And that was
yeah,
another thing. I had to take Latin and change my whole lunchtime schedule just to play, and I had to pass Latin, so I actually
yeah,
had to pay
yeah, he
attention
would have
and do
kicked you out
work.
of the club if you had
Yeah,
failed
yeah,
Latin.
yeah.
So
It's the
there you
only
go,
class
kids.
I
Our
failed. I passed through the whole 4 years.
our high school gaming club was run by the Latin teacher,
Yes,
and
yeah. And also
and
the history head of history department.
if you didn't have an honors program pedigree like yours truly did at the time,
I was in
he
the
would make
bonehead
you jump
class. It
through
was just
hoops to
way
join the
too.
club. You had to prove you were serious. And in retrospect, I think I respect that. Actually, there's been a after doing the extreme open door policy of running a vampire LARP. I'm definitely a big fan of the notion of policing who sits at your table. I'm going to be very picky and choosy with who I decide to sit down and play with. Not that I don't give new people a first time chance, but you got to pick and choose, man. There's only so much time to game these days.
Well, that kind of brings me to my convention play. Like, well, let's get back to the history. Let's.
We'll go
Well,
back to the history. So
yeah,
you started
in
out
school,
with
and then we ended up running the club and splitting the club off and having it, trying to be more inclusive to people and trying to set it up so that there would be something running after we left. Which I hopefully it kept on going with Hop at the head, but uh, after that, we played. Man, we played everything and anything we had. What weekends where we played triple all nighters or whatever to the point
yes,
where we couldn't even stay up any longer.
yeah. The
And
golden age of play was that
yeah,
year or two where we were gaming together, but none of us was old enough to have a car and a job yet.
right.
So we had nothing else to do with our weekends. It was always pull an all nighter at somebody's house, and we rotated between the 3 or 4 of us always. So
Yeah,
and
we
yeah,
were.
I remember we made it a point of trying every single game that we had bought, which was even as high schoolers with limited funds, I ended up with more games than we were ever going to play.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what kind of led me to after that. Like after playing all that, like I we got into World of Darkness, we got into live role playing. You and I, you moved states, so you continued on in that
Right,
direction. And then I completely became a hermit for a few years because I had a lot of things that I just needed to handle in my own life.
right,
So
right.
that was part of something that got cut out, and I had to hunker down. I had a lot of things I had to get paid off and just straighten out my life. And then when I had children again, I wanted to get back into it. My oldest Justin, he played like 40K, and we played Pokemon, and
Hmm.
but it just wasn't the same. And I was kind of like old with my rules compared to what where they're playing in school, and I just didn't understand. And and he used to
Right,
walk up
right.
or ride a skateboard up to the local shop and play like 40K. And I, as a parent, I didn't have the money to pay 40K again. So,
No,
oh,
no,
that's, oh yeah, I
never
didn't,
did, never did. I mean, and see, that was the thing for me. It always sung for me. It's kind of like, okay, I got $100 in my hand, and I can go buy
right,
one box set of Warhammer, maybe one box,
right.
or I can go buy like 5 books.
Well,
Right?
I
I'm
was
gonna go
really
buy
into
five
it for a
books.
while,
Sorry, man.
and painting and stuff. I was really into it for a while, but after all that stuff was gone, it was hard to justify
Doing
spending
it again.
paychecks on that again. So I kind of let that opportunity go, which I regret. So when my middle son was coming up, I started watching. Getting That's when YouTube was really popular with a few stations like Victory Condition Gaming.
Okay.
Huge fan of that. His daughter, same age as Alex, so it's kind of like, okay, get me back into it, and really being online and being an online presence like that kind of led into fifth edition because that was coming out. Perfect timing for me. I was like, why not?
Mhm.
Because I had actually dipped my toes in at third edition, and it was like 6 months after I bought third edition, 3.5 came out, and I gave the book to Goodwill and didn't look back until fifth edition. So, and then honestly, I got together with a edition group from the restaurants I was working in. Some of the bar guests they had a regular group, and it was funny that the person who ran the group was basically a teacher, kind of like Hop, and they were all students and or
Mhm.
faculty members at this point. They were different iterations of groups that he had played with, and I got to sit in with him and had a great time with fifth edition for sure.
And
But
now, what's your fifth
yeah.
edition career been? Like,
uh
did you have a home group for a while, or you had
Yeah,
mentioned?
up until COVID, we had a
Oh,
regular thing going, yeah, for a few years, um, which was kind of cool. I ended up because I couldn't make it every game. I ended up being in maybe three different campaigns with them with this dwarf character Goth that I always played.
you played a
And you
goth
remember,
in high school. Yeah.
right, right.
Yes,
I
you
created
did. I
that
remember
character in high
goth
school,
with
right?
the dreadlocked beard.
Yeah, and the Kestis on his fist, and
Yes.
yeah, I did like D4 damage, but it was like I hit so many times in Berserk and
Right, and it was D4
strength. And,
plus like 12 or something
yeah,
like something.
yeah.
So that punching chart from second edition was brutal and powerful if you leaned
Well,
into it.
this is the thing. Like, really, in fifth edition, I kind of did the same thing. Like and it was just a natural progression because if you just keep on, going that direction, it's inevitable that you get those kind of bonuses and stuff and those amount of attacks. And I always play easy characters to play because I like to use my games and my characters as just portions of my personality that I may need to have in therapy that day.
Okay, so you talked you mentioned how interest in Satanism is what brought you to it in
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
first place, and that's not really what it was all about. But what has
Oh
kept
yeah.
you going all these years? What about the hobby did you fall in love with?
So at first it was probably escapism. My home life wasn't great, and I found, and at the time, I'd like to say I didn't drink, but I drank. But I mean, we didn't do anything else, or I didn't do anything else at the time, and
Mhm.
but I could never get enough alcohol to escape my life. So when I found
Yeah.
role playing, it was a great escape, and it was kind of like acceptance. You know, like you guys accepted me for who I was and not who I could be or should be, or he has so much potential. You understood I was smart and lazy in school, and you didn't hold that against me, and it was a good feeling, for because I had low self esteem, incredibly low self esteem. So that was great for me. And like I said, there's something about running around in a fantasy world where you can smash whatever. And I'm sure a lot of role players start out that way where it's you are the murder hobos that everybody talks about.
Power
But
fantasy, yeah.
yeah, power fantasy, but eventually it started being much more than that, different ways to get together with different groups of people with different thought processes, and just to be able to talk to different people in different areas. I mean, we came from such a small town that it really was like,
Yeah.
I was so lucky to go with Hop to England and Scotland, but I remember more about, me and two other groups, tourist groups, purchasing Space Hawk when it first came out. Bought it over in England, so it was cheaper than it was here. And we would set up the whole thing like a 3-level Space Hawk and run it, and it was just amazing because Hop couldn't believe that someone that was really antisocial introvert that I was in high school, that here I am, by myself in a room full of people that I never knew or didn't know before the day started. So it helped a lot with that. So
Absolutely.
I truly believe it. Role playing can be used as a tool, in mental health. It's helped
Absolutely.
me through, and then that's why I've
So, and
stayed
that's a
treated.
contentious topic among some of the people that I rub elbows with on the X
Okay,
community and I agree, it shouldn't be therapy, but it
right,
is therapeutic.
therapeutic,
It's
correct,
absolutely therapeutic, and
correct,
it is a vehicle for self improvement. That's one
right,
thing
correct.
Garibay has said. It's a human
Oh
improvement,
yes,
and I happen to agree with that.
yeah, I for sure, and you're right. Thank you for correcting my words. Sometimes my words are not. I write much better than I speak, and you know that. Um,
Right, right. Not
um,
lazy, but bored.
well, yes, because I kind of got shoehorned into bonehead classes. That's what we called them
Yes, you
back
did.
then. I was a proud bonehead, so I'm not trying to use it as a derogatory term. But once I realized that I couldn't get out of that certain pathway, you're right. I was bored. A lot of teachers realized I was bored and would, what do they call that? Allow me. What's the, um, where
Work
you,
study, something
no,
like
they
that.
just allow me to sleep. I mean, you remember, I was allowed to go sit in the back of the room by the window and sleep
Oh, right, yeah,
all
yeah.
class.
Must be some Montessori technique or something.
Right, right.
Yeah, yes, beyond our understanding as little hick guys from New Jersey.
Not that I would say his name, but there was people that were graduating with us that couldn't read. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah, yes,
How much is this paper worth? And that was the attitude
it
I had.
solidifies how proud I am of my high school diploma.
Well, I try to explain to my sons that it it really I lacked the foundation to get me further in life, the the social skills, the systems that you could really get yourself in place, stuff that I put in place for myself in business that I could have helped control some of my my craziness in my past. But here we are today. I mean, like I said, I had followed the industry, watching it, going to conventions. So I started playing at conventions a lot because I didn't have a group after 2020. I didn't have like a regular group, so I started playing at conventions all the time, and I try to maximize my time in there. Um, and I found a lot of things lacking for what I was looking for. I had a great time, don't get me wrong, because I'm always going to make fun no matter what I play, and I'm going
Right.
to try and bring that fun to the game without being obnoxious about it. But I shouldn't have
Well,
to
that part's
come in
different
there
than it used to
and
be.
run. I shouldn't have to come in there and run somebody's game and feel like I have to run somebody's game for them. And I'm not trying to be pretentious at all. I never felt like I was a good GM. You say otherwise. Um, I just know that I want to
I
play,
do
and
say otherwise.
and then at conventions, it's just so much different than playing in your home. Like I start calling it like kitchen games, kitchen table games,
Mhm.
because you're working out long term campaigns, even in one shots. You may know that person you're sitting across the table from, and you may be shooting for something more than one shots or linking one shots together. But
Right. Right.
You can't bring that to can't to
Convention.
conventions because you have a very short amount of time. I was playing games where they would give the setup. Okay, well, you have to go and do this thing for this person. Okay, now you have 45 minutes of in-game time to shop at the local market. Okay, that's great. Is there gonna something happen at the local market? No. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to go look at clothing? Like, are you kidding me? Are you wasting my time with this? Like, we only have 4 hours of play or 2 hours of play, and I'm trying to pack as much into this experience as possible. And I don't need downtime like that. Like, just okay, tell me the special
Yes.
thing my character can do and what my objective is, and let me go.
Yeah, let's hit the ground running.
That's
Downtime really is the kind of thing that's meant for campaigns. It's sort of like
right,
in
right.
between things, you can go to the merchant, tell me what you're buying, and we'll just verify it.
Like, I listen to a lot of lazy DM. um
Mm-hmm.
his
Fly flourish.
yeah, Sly
Yeah.
Flourish. I mean, amazing content, incredible campaign, a lot of things that I thought that I naturally did when I ran games. But some of it can work, like starting off, in the action, um, but you have to kind of truncate a lot of that because you can still plant in those secrets or ideas because maybe those people will want to play that game at some other point. um, so anyway, like, I started thinking about all this
Mhm.
stuff and talking about it to different friends, and I came up with an idea that there should be some type of framework, for um, convention games, like that a gaming company can say, okay, like the Sly First ones, I can confidently say I can take the lazy DM framework for his campaigns and make a great campaign from it with all of his ideas and all the things in there. But like I said, it doesn't all work for conventions because conventions are, I think, completely different things than playing in your at your kitchen table.
It
Uh,
really is. Yeah. Yeah. From
and I
everything I've
started
heard.
weighing all this stuff, and so I started making this framework for it. And to go along with the framework, I thought, like, I like starter kits, like I like the starter box sets. Starter box sets have become better and better. The new Borderlands, Keep on the Borderlands D&D starter
Mhm.
set just came out, and it looks like it's really geared towards players, like introducing them to the game. And then that actually was my same thoughts about convention play, where you're just kind of introducing them to something that you want them to possibly play later, in a
Right.
campaign setting. Like, I play convention games because I want to play and I want to have fun. Sometimes I play convention games because I want a flavoring of whatever game system that is. Sometimes I specifically play convention games to play a specific system because I want to see how that system works. Like, if you
Right.
have a
So,
framework, though, you can fit anything into a framework to your needs and desires, into a framework that can lead to, I don't want to use success, but and I don't even want to use a fun experience, a more engaging experience for everybody at the table to
okay.
have. For me, it has to be, I guess, engaging's the big word.
All right. Mark Kugler says, "Hey, Scott."
Yeah, I see him. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, man. He's a good dude. He's a good
All
friend of
right.
mine. Him
Can
and
I
his
ask an
family.
honest question? I've been watching Stranger Things. I was the jock guy. I knew kids that were playing D&D, but I was on a different path. How do I start at 47 years old?
Well,
Easy.
first of all, you're my friend and you live very close to
Call,
me. You can
call
just
Scott. Yeah. Yeah.
hi.
Who?
That's
Gee, I think we happen to know somebody in your area who's been looking to start a regular group.
But in all seriousness, if you're starting D and D, the new beginners box set, I have not. I don't own it. I haven't played it. I've watched a lot of content on it. It seems to be great for new players, but it also says that you may need a kind of experienced GM. For Mark, because he lives so close. If he purchased something like that and he wanted to play with his family, I would happy to GM for him, DM for him, to allow him to get the hang of it. You know,
Right on.
to
And
kind of pass that along.
if I may, don't think that D&D is even the best place to start necessarily. There are numerous other games like
Oh,
Castle
many,
Shades,
many.
Basic Fantasy, Shadow Dark, Old School Essentials. The list goes on. There are
D
many
and D is just
options that
the biggest.
recreate older editions
Yeah.
of the game.
There's a flavor for any person, anyone, whatever your interest is out there. There is a game for, right?
Yes. Like it doesn't even have to be fantasy. It can be cyberpunk. Like there's a Blade Runner RPG. There's an Alien,
Which I own, which I also own.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
So there's
I
sci-fi,
own basically everything Free League produces. Yes.
post-apocalyptic.
No, just
Yep.
Free League. Like I said, I
Oh,
mean, I
yeah.
think they produce a high quality game. I think their system's really good. Um, yeah,
So
so
Mark is saying he knows nothing. He doesn't even quite understand what the goal of the activity is. So you've seen Stranger Things, and you understand that each person is
it's
taking
not
on
the
the
Conjure
role.
Demons.
What's
I
that?
can tell you that it's not the Conjure Demons. I can tell you that for sure.
Yes, yeah. Hard experience. I had to go buy a completely different set of books for that.
I had to go buy a completely new pair of underwear for that.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, sacrifices had to be made. Um, but the gist of it is that one person takes on the role of the game master or dungeon master in D&D's case. Sometimes there's specific names. But the games master is the person who describes things. You find yourself in a tavern. It's smoky. It's dark. Slightly after sundown. So it's filled up with people who are just relaxing and having a drink after a hard day's work. What do? You would then turn around and describe what your character is doing based upon either what you want to do or your honest estimation. The goal of a role-playing game is to kind of put yourself in that character's shoes and try and think like that character and say, well, I'm a dwarven barbarian. What do I think a dwarven barbarian would do in this situation? And that's the baseline. It can get a lot more intricate and detailed than that. And there's systems and games of varying complexity.
I just want to mention, since I know Mark so much, um, this would be right up his alley. This is the Rick and
Rick and
Morty
Morty.
D&D starter set. That might be right up his humor alley, but not exactly for his youngest. Definitely for his son, his oldest. And then I recently, speaking of what games to play, I picked up my copy of Daggerheart to get on the bandwagon. And then
I've avoided that one. Not my bandwagon.
so by Runehammer, he also released this, which is his hard suit. This is hard suit primal, which is
Oh,
basically a world
I
in
recognize his
use,
art.
with for Daggerheart. So it was a good reason for me to purchase Daggerheart so that I would have the rule set I needed to play the game that I wanted to play. No disrespect to Dragonheart. It looks like an amazingly produced game. I have not played yet.
Right. Youth Dev
So
Club says D&D is whatever you want it to be. Welcome to the channel. I don't recall seeing you here before, but I'm glad to have you here and pitching in. If you know
Youth
Scott,
Death Club. I mean, their music, you have to check out their music, dude. Incredible, incredible music.
making a note of it now.
Good people. I actually wrote an entire role playing game for them. I have, back to what I was talking about with the convention. I made convention kits, but I actually made a convention kit in honor of them. Um, so yeah, good people there. Great music. I may or
or
may not have.
on?
I may or may not have participated in illicit activities with some of the band members in a parking lot at one point in my life.
The answer is, of course, you didn't.
Of course, I did.
Never happened. Don't even know these people.
So, yeah, I started volunteering at these conventions, and PAX Unplugged came around, and it was one of the conventions that really stuck. I started going to PAX Unplugged since the first time. I only missed like one due to COVID. I actually had COVID, not due to COVID. I actually had COVID, unfortunately, because I was supposed to do work um, with some friends of mine. Um, so I never made that one. But yeah, at first when it was smaller, it was really great to play. As it got bigger, you know, there's a lot of professionals in there, which makes it great because they understand what makes a convention game run. But I felt like at those conventions, because people stay there, it would be at the table maybe two or three people that are of the same group in their hometown. So it's almost like me versus them, when I'm, because they don't
Right.
trust me and they're doing their own thing and they have their own
Well,
inside jokes and I'm just kind of me. And
and to me, that seems kind of weird to go to a con, but then
right,
just play with the
right,
people you always play with. Like,
right, right.
the whole point of
Yeah.
going to a con would be to expose yourself to something different.
And that's what I do. Like I mean, nobody knows me except for people in the industry. No, none of the players know me.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
just go and I pop in there and I have a good time, man. Like, but
I mean,
there's
you know,
been
now
issues.
that's all changed. This is instant celebrity. We're going to have to start uh, putting a fence around the property. I mean, now it's going to blow up all over the place.
And then, my crazy world. So then with this con kit, I wanted to make up adventures. I should have made up adventures like more traditional type adventures instead because I just could not do it because I'm not commercially viable. I don't know. I need some help with that. One of my best worlds ever was this. I went down this rabbit hole. I was watching History Channel and they were talking about uh, hippos were almost imported to the United States, right? Hippos were almost imported to the United States, and it was supposed to be
That's
used as a
exactly what Florida needs.
source of meat, right? It was supposed to be used as a source of meat, and of course, it got shot down or whatever because over here we were saying how great and cuddly they were, and then obviously they're super aggressive and so
Yeah,
anyway, I was like, I started going down this rabbit hole. Well, what would happen if we actually went through with that? So I created, you know, I don't know if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Yellowstone. It's
never.
super.
No,
It's like a modern day rancher cowboy type.
I've
My
seen clips here and there, so I
yeah,
get
my
the
wife
idea.
loves it. It's super popular. But I thought, well, what if I had a role playing game in that setting, but with hippos? So that's what I created. And a part of like the family history and stuff, I wrote my good friend Chef Scott Sayer and his daughter as chefs, and they revolutionized the restaurant industry with hippo meat, and the ranch family goes a different way with hippo meat, so it's a huge competition or whatever. And in this hippo world, I decided that hippos were so popular that they made hippo movies back in the 60s and 70s, like the old spaghetti westerns, but instead of cows, they had hippos.
Right.
It was completely like just like those westerns were, the old Clint Eastwood movies. So I made like a Wild West hippo world out of that whole thing. And I carried back the whole history of the family and Chef Scott's family. His family originally was from Florida. Both his parents recently passed away. Beautiful people, super eccentric, biker types, like Florida, all 100%. Went from Florida to moved to New Jersey of all places, and that's where I met Scott at. Um, he spells it with one T, so his parents weren't right.
Yeah,
Uh,
seriously.
but anyway,
Who does
he
that?
used to
Who does that to a kid?
he used to tell me all these crazy stories about his parents growing up. So I kind of wrote some of them into the stories and made it. And I actually sent him the whole history, and he told me he cried about it because it was so beautiful. His daughter has Down syndrome, and I used to go as Iron Hill. We worked at Iron Hill together, and we would support. And we would go walk every year, and it was a big deal. So she took over the restaurant empire from Scott, and she's like the head of the big restaurant Hippo Empire now. Um, yeah, so I do stuff like that, man. Like, like those old space '60s TV serials, like they always looked sci-fi. And a lot of them have become games or become like redone in movies. Well, I looked back at a bunch of those shows, and I said, well, what if something happened genetically in humans, and the only genetics they could find that would match up is in canines. And then after so many years of genetic modification, it created this canine human breed race where pure humans, were a minority, and this dog race was based on the different races of dogs. So in the game, I have it set out. You could be the different species or,
Kind of
or breeds of dogs, and that you were mixed with. But it's not like
kind of
you know
reminds me of rock and roll.
it does, and it's not like it's more like a Star Trek society, and they don't look down on each other. It was something that was necessary for the human race to exist, and it's just something that happened. And then now they go out and explore space. So like they have this dog crew and some humans and androids, all the space stuff that you have. And I was just thinking about recently making like their villains. I already have their villains set, but maybe changing them to like an ant race. But yeah, dude, I have all these wacky ideas and worlds.
Yeah, I know. I've seen your folder of ideas of stuff that you got going on, and
The
there's a
wrestling
lot of real gems
superheroes.
in there.
Yeah,
That
the wrestling superheroes from a different dimension. That's one of my favorites,
they're
man.
they're they're stopping the bad things from happening.
Yeah, dude,
Let's
like they're from a dimension where like all fun has been wiped out. The whole dimension is gray. Any kind of like media control is controlled by the state, and nobody can have fun and have a fantastical thought. So these superheroes of that dimension figure out a way to get to our dimension, or they're just regular people that got over to our dimension, and because of our atmosphere or our dimension, they become superheroes, but their secret identities is hidden by professional wrestling, because that's the way they bring joy to the United States and get people to believe in the kayfabe in order to like power this world to keep the corrupt owners from their universe or their place to take over this place. So
so
they own,
if they
so
can
like
really
that
work the crowd well enough, they keep
right.
the bad thing from coming to this world.
Right. So when you're a wrestler, you can actually work the crowd in the system and win wrestling matches and increase your popularity, but then also play a superhero where everybody thinks that this wrestler is mimicking your costume as a wrestling gimmick, but it's
Yeah,
actually you, and you're
doing
fighting both the superpower evil of the other side and the evil promoters of the big time corporate wrestling, authority. So yeah, that's the kind of crazy ideas that I.
you got to have a mechanic for heel turns.
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah, for sure. The only
All
thing
right,
that I've
Mark.
ever, the only thing that I've written that's probably that would ever make it is I did this setting for Shadow Dark. I took like the old films when we were growing up, the black and white and early monster, not the universal ones, but the kind of cheapo ones that were always playing on Saturday afternoons.
Sure, the old black and whites where
Yeah,
the
so
dragon was an alligator with a fin.
So
gleefully.
yeah, the same type of world that would happen in what was that movie with kids, the Monster Squad? Where
Oh yeah, I love
all the
that. That's one of
monsters
my
were
favorite.
real.
Yep.
So it's that type of world, but it's in those themes, not like vampires as we know them as a to like a D&D type vampire. This
Right.
is like those type of vampires from those movies and mummies and different things like that. And I wrote this whole timeline, this whole history timeline using and I called it, I think, diesel punk. It's like a diesel punk type world that
Okay.
it ends up being. I wrote Mr. Hopkins in it. He's like some big professor in some occult type, organization. I think I
Whatever it
wrote
is, they speak Latin.
right. I wrote in there that he was Lutheran, but that he works for like a Catholicism, and his I kind of like wrote all that into the story. Um, yeah, you're in a story. My dad, my brother Joe, who passed, is in a story. I made this whole thing, my mech game, where the reality broke, and it's the reality of all of the old fantasy tales like Hansel and Gretel and all the folk tales. So it's like a fantasy folktale world that kind of fractures into ours. And we, using this fractal energy, we've created like power sources for mecha to fight these like big giant like bread men and stuff like that, like gingerbread men. Um,
So
so it's all
giant mecha Snow White kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, no, they're like big monsters that you got to fight in the mecha, and then
Right.
if you get killed in the mecha because they have this fractal energy in them, they have like percentage chance of keep on moving for a few more turns and do some crazy things. But I wrote my dad and my brother into that, so they named the mechs, like Glorious George or whatever. So my dad, I wrote him in, I gave him rank and stuff that he hadn't in before he retired out of the Navy. Wrote his ship in that his favorite ship on serving on, and the mech that he pilot was Mighty Joe, and it had like
Uh,
personality because they would gain personalities. Like Mighty Joe was one of these mechs that gains like sentient, and it was
as
my
time
brother.
goes on.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they had this huge, epic, world destroying type epic battle that saved humanity for a time. That all this like different battle techniques were designed on and based on, were all accredited to
So
my dad, and my brother.
you said a little while ago is I don't think I'm a good DM, but I disagree, and this is why because you've got two squirrels running chasing each other in a circle in your head and manage to get these ideas down on paper in various ways and forms. But this kind of wacky zaniness is exactly what I remember from your D&D games. That's why
And he's,
despite the one I was the one who had the most experience at the time because I had
uh,
been playing since I was 5. But once you took over DMing, I was hands off, and I learned a lot, particularly on how to run good NPCs.
that means a lot coming from you, man, because you are definitely in my top tier of DMs, GMs that I've ever ran across in my lifetime. Probably
Thank you.
number
Well,
one,
and
number two,
and
for
again, I
sure.
look forward to us getting the game again because I think I have improved drastically since you last played with me.
Yeah, are you kidding me? I think I've worsened drastically.
Now,
So
Mark asked, is there a finish or can this go for 10, 15, 20, 30 years?
it can go for 10, 15, 30 years, depending on how long you want to keep getting together and how long you keep on creating adventures. It could be with new characters,
Theoretically,
new
it goes
games.
indefinitely. There's no reason it has to end.
Who is it? The Greyhawk Grognard that had a 30-year game or 20-year game going on or
Yeah,
something like that?
and there's still others I know.
Yeah.
There's other people that have long-term campaigns. However, be prepared. That is the rarity. Most campaigns, according to the prevailing statistics, last less than 10 sessions. But There are reasons for that, and most campaigns should pardon me, a year or two. I think, it depends on how often you can play. Some people can only play once a month, once every other month. Some people play once a week or even more frequently.
And then for the longest time, I just played one character through multiple campaigns, multiple games, multiple DMs. That was Tark. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the years and years of playing him, I'm only like ninth level in D&D 2E terms, AD&D second edition terms.
Well, yeah,
I,
and with all the jumping around, it doesn't quite translate exactly the
right.
same. Like what would be a completely unoppressive stat array? Pardon me. In first edition, would be an impressive stat array in any of the later editions, third edition,
Right.
just
Correct.
because they completely changed how attribute bonuses work and what an 18 means.
Well, that was, that was all second edition. All the games that I played in were all second edition. So, not I kind of retired Tark once third edition came out, and I rage quit. Um, but I started
That's true.
collecting, yeah, and I started collecting then and following games. And honestly, I've been writing games. I technically since what 1990, 1991. These a lot of these games have been written on pieces of paper in notebooks
Mm-hmm.
on my different laptops on different hard drives. I just have never compiled them together until now. And that's when I gave you access and a few other friends of mine's access to it because,
Right. Yeah.
um, you know, it's like with the con kit, okay? One of the conventions that I volunteered at last year is the Philadelphia Area Gaming Convention, which is a t-shirt I'm wearing. I also
Ah,
have
right.
a poster up in my back. Let's try this way. Nope, I'm not very good at this. But anyway, um, and the reason why I volunteered there was because they're they help writers. They help people in the industry who, for a long time, have worked as subcontractors, independent contractors, or whatever, may not had the best of healthcare or even steady paying jobs. You know yourself just from writing books, a book,
Yeah.
like writing anything, it's work may be few and far between if you're not at that elite. And now
Right.
even the elites, they're all at that age, and unfortunately a lot have passed, but they need the kind of healthcare that you know our government just doesn't provide, and they've never had the long-term jobs situation to provide that for them. So the big thing with Page is to raise money and help these people. They have it's a full charity foundation. They have a
That's
whole
excellent.
yeah, and it's something that really moved me, especially with my all of my health issues, my medical issues, in later on in life. That thankfully I had jobs where I had insurance and I could get through it. And I had a family, I had a wife and supportive children and friends that could get me through it. But not everybody has that. So it really moved me. So I actually went to page two for the first time. I did all volunteer shifts. I ended up driving, picking up people for the event, presenters, people in the industry at the Philadelphia airport, and dropping them back off again. Big snowstorm, which was crazy, crazy adventures, amazing people. Everyone who put together Paige, Ron and his wife, amazing. Their whole team's amazing. I just went there and tried to help out and use everything that I knew from my hospitality training to help them out. And I made some good friends and hopefully long term friends. Met some of my idols, your idols, just walking around. And that was the great thing about Page. Everybody was just walking around. They were so like accessible. And page three this year coming up, it's going to be like twice the size. There's going to be twice as many vendors. the the list that they have out for who's supposed to be appearing, it has just grown. They are known YouTubers, known industry people. They have amazing panels. I was the auctions that they have. I donated. So what I did was split my almost in my entire collection between Page Two and EcclesiaCon. EcclesiaCon is in New Jersey, and Page is up in the not the convention center in Philly, but it's up in the Oaks Center. Um, I split my donations between both of them. I took
Right.
all the games that I'd kickstarted, all the one-offs. I basically got rid of everything that wasn't D&D, or I kept most of my free league stuff, some of my newer stuff, but a lot of the Kickstarter stuff that maybe didn't come to fruition, or stuff that I just wasn't as interested in as I thought I was going to be, or maybe, you know, I'll tell you, I was doing so much then. I had multiples of multiple games in different versions, softback, hardback, you know, and I owned the PDFs for everything. So I said, why not take my entire collection? Because I was clearly still purchasing, still collecting when I don't have the money, but I seem to always find money for that.
We all
So
have our frailties.
I donated, quite a bit to both organizations, and they were super good with me. Great people, good organizations. I mean, I can't say enough good about both of them, but
Right.
Page in itself, again, if you're in the area or you can come into the Philadelphia area, Page is an incredible convention to come to. You'll see the people out there that you know and love from the industry. They walk around, you get autographs. There's an amazing like yard sale type deal early one morning. I think it was on Saturday, like a swap meet, and they had like anything you can imagine. If you're a collector, like old school stuff,
Right.
great pricing there. And of course, they have other vendors there that come there all the time. Heidi Gygax, I got to meet her and her husband. That was awesome. Chet Mitten, like one of my all-time favorite artists, got to meet him. I actually saw today. Let me step away for a second, but you can still hear me. I know it's not good TV or whatever, but
Mark is chomping at the bit to get started. Scott, how did you start? Was there someone that guided you, or was it more of a figured out yourself kind of thing? You got to get this guy Mark started, guys.
So
We have
it was kind of
somebody
like
in the chat interested in playing.
so. This is how I started.
Patty,
Richie,
hold on a second. Patty, glad to have you, brother.
Richie,
Cyrus, glad to have you, brother.
Richie kind of kicked me off on the idea of it, but we really didn't play. Like maybe played a game or something. But being friends with Jason in high school, we had a lot of same interests in metal and whatnot. So, like I said, we picked up games, and we just started rolling up characters and then fighting those characters against random monsters, and that's how we played. We didn't literally play anything. We
like
just
didn't have
big monsters
and stuff.
yeah, we didn't. We bought the adventures just to get the treasure guides out of them and the monster guides out of them, because we just fight the biggest, nastiest monsters, give ourselves all the nastiest magical equipment and all the money, and then
yeah, I've been there. I've done that.
I mean, I didn't seriously play until the game. Remember, we got together. Our first meeting was my 16th birthday. I invited the three of you over. You and Adam didn't know who I was, other than
we had talked on the phone a couple of times, perhaps.
And you came over to stay the night and didn't even think I was going to murder you. But yeah, that was our first kickoff, and that was Star Wars.
Now I know better, but it's just
yeah. I mean, so now I think it's even more accessible if you're into being online and doing something like this. There's billions of games out there for you, and actually You could probably get
particularly
into
if
a game
you're
every night.
active and hooked up to Discord. In my online stuff, I've been finding that a lot of the action's happening in Discords and various servers. So find friends of yours, a group that you like, or even a dedicated server for the game that you like. Like if you decide you like Shadow Dark, there's just an actual official Arcane library Discord server that you can join.
Yeah, you can probably almost pick any.
You're not exactly the poster boy for pointing out posters.
No, I am not the poster boy.
The pun king. He's
Yeah,
he's a frequent,
they didn't put me. They didn't. I'm not in construction flagging, so you ain't gotta worry about that. But
so
yeah, I
now
mean,
your experience with the cons and the stuff you were doing there and the playing at the cons is what inspired this idea of con kits, which to me sound like more or less modules designed for conventions, which are a thing already, like tournament modules from the old D&D days. What is different between a con kit and a module for a game that exists already?
I mean, maybe nothing, maybe everything. I'm not sure with those, but my idea was kind of mashing up what I was talking about with having this kit, and the idea was like Advanced Hero Quest. I could just buy this box, open it up. It has everything I need in to play the game that I'm playing in this box. My rules are simple and easy to understand. The players have pre-generated characters, and you hit the ground, you hit the table running,
Right.
and it's a finite thing because they have to be. I think one of the things I was missing with them is you need that beginning, middle, end. And if you're playing a convention game like you're playing a campaign or a kitchen top game, you may get to the middle. You never get to the ending because the ending is the continuing story, the adventure. And if you have an ending, then you
Mhm.
know. So there was a lot of adventures that I played in like that as well. There was no ending. So I wanted to put together something that a would fit into 2 and 4 hour time slots,
Mhm.
so that would gauge on time, so it'd give you different hints. The idea was that you could open the box, and as a dungeon master or GM, you could read over a one sheet rules. Then you would understand everything about the adventure, or minimal prep. Less than 30 minutes prep to buy this convention box and
Right.
to be able to run this specific adventure. And the idea was is that the framework is agnostic. You could put any system you want in there. It's based on nodes. It gives you just like other, I give you like DM tricks and tips to save you time or to fast forward time or to make things more engaging. And then it kind of built from there. And then it's like, okay, well, there's some people that really like rolling up characters when they first get there. So I kind of devised like a 5 minute character generator. So if you do have somebody there that wants to generate a character, because the rules that I trimmed down to were so simplistic that all of the rules were the same, and I was only changing the main die. So if you wanted like a fantasy D&D like type game, you would use a D20. If
Hmm.
you wanted a, I don't know, mothership style game, it would be based on percentiles. But all your damage was like 1d6. Everything else was based on 1d6. So that way it's a
See, now
minimal amount.
that's really tough, though. That's a very
Yeah.
tall design order.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
literally to come, because that's one of those things people have tried to crack that particular code in the past. Of it, if you could just write a module that could be used with any system, that's what people would do, right?
Right.
That's going to be kind of the problem. It almost seems like you'd be better served by having a stupidly ridiculous simple core system that, like, fits on one sheet and all the rules are right there. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I eventually came to. I was trying to do this, and it was particularly hard. And actually, if I was to redo it or to change up things right now, I would probably base it on a D20, just because that is the most accepted die, the most known die, maybe the most known something to get somebody into. But you see the idea I was trying to get to, like there's certain flavorings would, so that way, if you wanted to continue a mothership campaign, you could take your simple characters and kind of like port them over to your mothership game and just flesh them out and continue on your pathway.
Yeah, so
So
there's still
anyway,
seeds.
that became
So,
a huge problem, obviously, in doing
yeah.
that. So I had already been working on a system called Fortune D6. I like D6 pools. It's one of my favorite systems. So based off a tiny D6, Free League Publishing. There's so many D6. I mean, we were playing D6
We got
pools back in Champions, and
yeah, Cyrus Wright himself, he just shared a D6 pool system where whenever you roll, it's 6 dice of specific colors, and each color die correlates to a specific thing or outcome. They're really interesting. I have yet to get it to the table and try it out, but I've been looking it over. But
yeah,
he himself does a lot of similar, very simple, easy to use rules, and he puts them all up on his itch.io.
yeah, and that's my Fortune D6 rules, because they were so simplistic. I could, in writing all those kooky world settings that I made, it was easy to add in different things I needed for those worlds to run. Like the hippo aggression
Yeah.
system, and stuff like that. So you got to have easy system. So then
You need
I
a
just
system that tells you when your hippo goes berserk. You
I,
do.
I I just honestly felt like until I got to somewhere different, I put my system in there because I wanted to keep going forward with producing the Conkit idea and the adventures.
Mhm.
So I believe I wrote 19 total adventures for the Conkit.
Okay.
Uh, and I think maybe 5 to 9 different genres of, just basic types. So the next idea is okay, if somebody comes to convention and they want to play fantasy to get a taste of fantasy, I can grab my fantasy type box or my sci-fi type box or my whatever genre type box. And then, a very good friend of mine who didn't want his name mentioned, but gave me this great idea of this rescue DM GM type idea where I could be stationed at conventions with my little con kits, and when, like it so often does, is either maybe there's not enough players that show up to a couple different tables, or something happens to the DM, or something ran over, they got too tired, had to go to bed, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of players that have nothing to do in this time slot, where I could just jump in and be like, okay, well, what game were you about to run? Oh, Shadow Dark. I have a dark fantasy setting that I'm going to put out here, and it's a simple
So
game. Learn real quick, and we can just go from here.
now to interject, that happens enough at cons that it's a problem that you think a product needs to be developed for. Is that people are left hanging in a time slot with nothing to do?
Look, I can't say that I've been throughout the United States and the world to every convention. I've only been to the conventions here in the Philadelphia local
Got
area, which probably means maybe a handful of conventions, and then those same conventions, maybe two or three of them, multiple times. So my experience is limited, probably from, I would say, probably whatever the first PAX was, whatever year that was, the one with convention
it.
gaming. Like I said, only this area of convention gaming. So
Got it.
I'm only speaking. I'm truly only speaking on my experiences and things that I just view around me going to these conventions. I'm not saying this is a huge problem in conventions and all convention DMs need to do this, or their games are going to suck. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's got to be more people out there that could utilize something like this. This could easily be sold or given to convention owners to kind of bail out those tables. Because maybe there's a DM there who wants to run a game, and the game they planned on running, nobody was interested in. I have seen that multiple times.
Right.
Nobody,
Yeah. Where they signed up to run, some
and
variation
I'll have time, right? And maybe
of balloon.
maybe I have some time in between something I'm doing at the convention, and I want to slide into a game, but I don't want to play that game, even though there's plenty of seats open. Like there's a reason why maybe he doesn't have or she doesn't have players.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
maybe it's an option to kind of pull themselves out of, or give those players that would have been there, like a person like me who just wants to slide into a game, something quick and easy to access. Or it could
And it
even
sounds
be
like the real selling point you're driving for is the pick up and play aspect
pick
of,
up and play, but it's specifically one-shot convention use. But what I am going to say, though, in my adventures, I placed different secrets and different hooks that you can utilize into longer campaigns into the same adventuring world. What I'm saying is the framework itself can be used for any game. So I can take that framework and say I want to play a game of D&D. I can make that. I mean, I would suggest taking like the SRD version, like the stripped down rules version of any of those designs, which I did go on and pull down a lot of those, because I think a good convention game is really just getting at the core of it and really getting into the spirit of the game and the mechanics, because you're never going to experience everything, every special thing in that game in a period of 2 to 4 hours.
You're not.
Like,
You're not. What you've got to do during that time is showcase where that system shines.
Right. And that
The shadow
happens.
dark, it's the carousing. You gotta get some carousing in while you're at the table.
And that happens a lot, where some of the abilities, some of the games that I've played just for the system, because I'm going to see how the system plays, we're playing the full system, and you're playing first or third level characters or whatever. But let's say your powers don't kick until 5th level. Well, you're not even doing those special things that make the game cool. That make it different from X game. I came here to experience that. Or if it is something, I have to break my neck in order to use it. So I'm plotting through my whole game just to get a chance to use that one specific system mechanic, just so I can see how it works. And that's not a fun game for
No, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, it may be fun for me because I'm in my head the whole time, but it's not fun for other people. And I've seen other people do it.
So, and one of the things too, my experience has shown me that I don't care for one shots personally very much, for specifically the reasons you're talking about. It's like it's literally just this session. So there's no payoff for me getting into the character or learning anything about the character and doing any role playing, because I'm never coming back to this. And if I'm never coming back to this, I really have no incentive to take it seriously. And so I find it very difficult to engage in a one-shot kind of a situation. I'd rather have, I'll do better even if it's just a one-shot, but I at least think it's the start of a campaign, because then I'll at least get engaged and make a sincere effort during that one.
And you are absolutely the kind of player at every convention table. Absolutely, you are one of those people. I save my character sheets. I know Scott Garibay does from his convention play, because I don't like you said, I don't like it just being one character. Like, I've had some really cool characters that I want to play in that system or in another system, but I want to play that character because I made it more than what it was on that character sheet.
Yeah,
and
by
I
the time you were done, there was more than just a set of numbers.
Right, and that's how I go at the game. I try to look at it like that. You've actually played with me the longest of anybody, and I'm always going to take risks. What people may think because I'm taking risks because I'm only playing the character once. No, that's me role playing all the time.
Yes, yeah. Even when it's a character he intends on playing forever, he does the craziest things.
I
Like
do the craziest things,
I leap off the boulder onto the back of the owl bear.
but I've also seen players get stuck in that idea of I may die, right? I may die. So, and you say to yourself, so what's the big deal about that? It's a one shot. It's a campaign. I mean, it's a convention game. Who cares if you die,
Who
right?
cares?
Who cares? Matter of fact, they have, boards that you could put your character sheets on, like, RIP boards, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. But
it's like a badge of honor.
So the value for someone who is running the game, who has prepared this game for as long as they have, because it takes a lot to prepare a game for anything, for a one-shot convention campaign play. For the people who are playing, they are giving you their time that they could be playing something else or doing something else at that convention. Conventions are packed now with different things going on at all times. And it's hard to get into some of the more popular games like Shadow Dark. Even if they put more games on and more games on, it's hard to get involved with some of those games, So what if you created a way that it's the player's choice whether or not they walk away from that game?
Yeah.
So if you want to walk away from that game and you're death and that's it, and you're cool with that, because maybe you don't like the game, maybe you don't like the character, maybe you don't like me as a GM, maybe you don't like one of the obnoxious players next to you, and once you die, you're out. You're cool with it. I'm going to go walk around and shop.
Good deal. I'm gone. Yeah.
But I've been stuck at conventions where the smaller conventions where my time is packed with games and there's not shopping for days or whatever. I can't go across the street to, Philadelphia, the marketplace, and buy cheesesteaks or whatever. Mm-hmm. So how do I fix that? How do I fix that? Not only keeps players attentive and game masters attentive at the conventions and more interactive with things. Well, come up with a system where I call it the legacy system. I think spectral legacy system. And you can make a choice to come back, but not come back as that character, but come back as, like, say, you're in Aliens and you're in the ship and you're running through the ship and you're one of the last PCs and you're running, but the person behind you is running too, and they're just not fast enough. And oh my God, the alien just eats them and they're dead. But they have a choice now to somehow, some way, now they've become, because they're imprinted into Mother, they've now become like an AI on the system, and they can make choices to help guide you, to help you in that. So they could shut doors on the alien where maybe you couldn't, or open a door where you couldn't, or see something ahead of you that you had no idea and could help you. Now you think like, well, I'm going to go into it and I'm just going to kill myself, because that sounds way cooler than playing. Well, I mean, each one of the framework kits that I set up based on the type of theme, if you're doing fantasy, you have a certain percentage or one of every 6, because it's based on a 6 player, because that's most conventions are at 6 players. So up to 6 players. And I would say 3 to 6 players. I just couldn't get it down to like a solo play type thing at conventions. It just didn't make sense to me. You have to have 3 to 6 players at the convention.
I just Discord servers were workshopping a solo convention.
Right. And it was just too much to do with what I was already involved with. So yeah, I and then like I have one like, so I made specifically for Paige, and it has to do, and think like the 1980s Ghostbusters game, right? Yes. The D6 Ghostbusters game, just wacky game, right?
Yeah.
So think that a good friend of mine, Kelsey, who worked with me at Iron Hill Brewery, who is an amazing artist. She did some art, and that's kind of like just the guidelines I gave her, and showed her some pictures of stuff. So she did some amazing artwork for it. But I set it up like that, kind of that. So like the Spectral Legacy system is kind of like you can pull pranks on as a ghost, like you then become a actual ghost in the Ghostbuster story. You're a spirit helping your other Ghostbuster friends. Obviously it's not Ghostbusters, it's my own, but just think of that type of, you're at a
Yeah,
convention.
a completely different intellectual property. Totally not Ghostbusters.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, like, I just want the style of the Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s, 90s, that hokey kind of horror, comedy,
Right, right.
Now I base a lot of my games on man, I have so many over years of watching so many crazy things. There's so many influences. I could never name them all.
So DMG Scale Models weighs in and tells Mark that I got a late start in D&D through some seasoned gamers who had a campaign going. They introduced me to basic rules and showed me how to make the character. I took it from there. It can be overwhelming at first, but if you were in with a good crew, it'll be fun, which is absolutely true. The best way is to find a crew. I am surprised, particularly in the fifth edition days, of how many people I've talked to that they got into the game and they didn't know anyone who played. They just bought the books and taught themselves and figured it out, fumbled through it. They watched.
That's how we did it, right? I mean,
Well, well, see, that's the thing. No, I didn't. My parents taught
oh
me.
yeah, right.
You know,
I kind of
so,
fumbled around until I met you.
right, and then we taught it how to play. So it was really a neat thing. And again, I was having a conversation with Crescendo, whose game I play tested yesterday.
Okay.
Great stuff. I can't say enough good things about it. But examples of play are very important. It's a very innovative and different kind of a system. Examples of play are going to be paramount importance, in my opinion, and include them. And that's one of the things that really made D&D make sense and playable back in the early days, back in the 80s. Now you can watch Critical Role or, frankly, even enough episodes of Stranger Things. You're going to grok how
Which
D&D is
both are those are huge with fifth edition, the huge resurgence. Whether you watch the shows or don't watch shows, don't like them, but it really was a huge push in the industry. I really liked what they did with fifth edition, the 2014 version. I know we get into, I still call it 2024 version. I don't think it's 5e at all. I don't think it can be.
Yeah,
I
you're the
think
one.
it should have been 6e all the
I've
way.
mentioned it on other shows that you're the person who told me no, it's more
Yeah,
different from the previous books
it's
and
it's a
prequel
great
books.
game, man. Like honestly, any game can be a great game, dude. Like it, because all you have to have is an imagination. Your rule sets don't always make a difference. Like some of the second edition rules,
So
we played AD&D for so long, but we didn't play some of the rules.
yes, yeah, we always adapt that, right? And
Right.
that's where my opinion has changed or perhaps matured over the years, where I'm much more like well, no, if we're going to play D&D, we're going to use all the rules this time, because otherwise why bother? If we're going to pick and choose which rules to use, then I'm pulling down Beckme, or we're pulling out Basic
Right.
Fantasy. We're going with a simpler rule set and using all of those rules.
But I think the difference is with you and I, maybe some others, is that we have collected so many different rule sets and we know so many different rule sets. We know that there is a rule set out there for you. But um,
Well, and I'm in that camp of, I know I used to homebrew, make shit up, go willy nilly, whatnot, and fallen victim to what my own cleverness, like something I think is a very innocuous change ends up kind of breaking the campaign because
yes, oh my
it's a
goodness,
loophole in
yes.
the rules or something like that, a new magic item, a new spell, something or
And like
other.
I said, currently I prefer to play rules as written
Mhm.
because out of respect for the artists. It's kind of like the old days of listening to an album. Artists used to place songs in a specific order on the album to tell a story, tell whatever story they wanted. Where
Yeah.
this day and age where you can just get a song that, a lot of people aren't telling that anymore.
It's true. I feel like the art of the actual concept album has been lost to us because there are older albums you can listen to, and
Right.
there's a definite rhythm to the album itself of highs and lows and highs and lows
So I
and
look at each game like
recurring
that. Like
sounds.
I look at each game like that now. If I want to change rules, I make my own rules because I already do that. Like, why write my own rules when I have 20 other sets of rules? I write my own rules for my own enjoyment. I write my own worlds for my own enjoyment. Most of those worlds that we're discussing, like I could go over every single one of those worlds, and probably two of those worlds somebody would go, "Yeah, I could see that commercially," but the rest of them are just weird, like you said, two squirrels in my brain.
Right. Well, see, now here's the thing, though. Here's that, believe it or not, works to your favor because any one of those ideas you take and get across the finish line is going to
Yeah,
stand out in this market. And
you're right.
that's more important than, like,
So,
if I came up with, if I could write another Heartbreaker D&D clone and put it out there with everybody
right.
else's, but it's not going to stand out. You're giving yourself an uphill battle. Oh, what's this? A game about superhero wrestlers? Okay, I got to check that out. That's going to be a hit Kickstarter, right? It
So,
just is.
so this brings me up to the con kit as it is now. So, with Iron Hill Brewery closing down, my artist lost her full time job.
Mm-hmm.
I had started not a new position, but an expanded position at my work. My hours expanded to the point, and honestly, Jack, I got to the point where I was revising things, and it just wasn't fun to revise all this stuff, and it wasn't fun to write something that was commercially viable. I think
Yes.
I have a absolutely wonderful idea that could help a lot of people run their games. I think, even gaming companies could have convention kits and really kick off people to walk away from conventions and play their game and purchase their game, or it could just be, like I said, for emergency purposes to fill in time to really, maximize everyone's experience at the cons, and even for new GMs, because there's enough in the con kit framework to teach new GMs how to run that con kit. And it gives them those examples of those secrets or hooks that I was talking about that they could possibly run in the future. Like, there's no huge exposition. There's a short little thing that tells you a little bit about the world the con kit's about your characters, very short little thing, and then you drop right off into action. Like,
Right.
you don't even have a time to blink your eye, process what I just said before you're right in the middle of it.
Right.
Then it goes from there based on the character's choices. And I have different nodes, different rooms, or whatever, depending on what type of adventure it is, different places for the PCs to go, depending on their
Different
choices. And you
chain
can
of events.
add or subtract as you need it, depending on your time limit, because nobody is ever going to do what you want them to do. So you got to try and get
Right.
in,
Right.
you got to get your beginning, middle, and end in. Um, so I met with Ron of Page,
Okay.
and I pitched him the idea, and he thought it was a great idea. I pitched it to a few other people, and they thought it was a great idea. And he offered to help me out or financially with the project to get it in a Kickstarter. And I had a whole business plan and all that. But at this point in life, man, I realized for me, for this to be successful, I need to do it myself. I need to be running this. I need to have hands on it. And I don't have the desire to do that. I don't have the passion to do that. I don't have the passion to be a dungeon master anymore. I have a passion to be a player and to play. I mean, not saying I won't ever have that passion again, but right now I don't.
It
And
might
with
come
all
back.
the
Right.
financial and medical things that I had dropped on me in more recent times, and like I said, all of my artists were out of Iron Hill Brewery, and they just, it's really a decimation. 1,900 people lost their jobs, over multiple states, and financially, things have just gotten tighter. I work contracts for the government, so things have gotten tighter, and I've had to squeeze out and get overtime where I could and pick up
Right.
overtime where I could. So I just haven't had. I'm not saying I haven't had the time. I haven't made the time for it. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have the adventures. I have all 19 adventures written out. They all need to be play tested. I have a one venture con kit completely done as far as the written work and cover art by my amazing artist Kelsey, and all the plans to do it. And at this point, I really feel like, and Ron was setting me up to meet with 7 other convention owners too. That's how much he believed in this idea. Like, I do think, man, this can change things. I really think that this idea could really help a lot of people, not only help them game, because that's what I want. I want to give back
Mhm.
to the industry that's given so much to me in life, but it also has to be financially viable for someone to
Yeah.
actually do it. And I think this idea is financially viable not just for convention owners, but for game producers as well, or just general game masters who want to get into running games at a convention. And I see so many people at open tables and stuff. If I plop down with my con kit and I put up a little sign looking for players, I am confident that if I get 3 to 6 players on there, they are going to have a blast for 2 to 4 hours. A blast. If they
Got
don't, they can walk away from the table because they're going to have that option.
it. Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, all the options are built into the framework, But this is where I stand out with the project. I'm pretty passionate about the project itself and the
Right.
necessity for it. But to be God's honest truth with you, Jack, I would much rather volunteer and play at conventions than I would
Right.
run games at conventions. Unfortunately, that happens. That's a problem. And this was, part of my answer to do it. But if I
Right.
can't do it
Right.
myself, there's a
Yeah.
good
Well,
possibility
that
I'm
was
just
getting
going to
ready. The
release it out
question
into the
was,
wild.
you've talked to me about it several times and have talked
Yeah,
about it now, and it's clearly something that's been on your mind. You've seen it enough, and that was just one of those things that I wondered
well,
if it was common at cons in general.
the biggest
'Cause,
fear, the
I've never
biggest
heard
thing
of
was is like I started digging into it, and I don't know anything about starting a game, you know, and
it.
then tariffs came in, and it's like, okay, well, if I put board game pieces in a box, even though it's not a board game, then I get tariffed like a board game and not as a book. But I
We'll
don't
go
want
out
a
to the
book. I want a
landfill and
content.
collect little plastic pieces of whatever, and we'll include them. We'll wash them first. It'll be fine.
Yeah, so it's man, I came to an impasse because like the cost of things, you need capital to start.
Well,
Even though Ron was so I mean so great to offer some type of financial support, I,
yeah.
I didn't even know what to ask for, Jack. Like I didn't even know what to ask for. That's how much I don't know about it because I
I
only
know
produce
what you
games.
mean, and that's
Yeah,
not an unusual problem in this space either. I've heard it from multiple people. I just talked to the basic expert, and one of the things that makes his life distinctly easier is the fact that he does everything himself. He does
right.
the writing, the art, the layouts, the
Well,
promotion. He's doing his own YouTube channel. It's a variety of things,
well, the problem with
and
my art was is that
that's always the problem is having to find, because essentially you have to pay people to do the things that you can't
yeah,
do yourself.
correct. And I was always a decent artist. Figure, but the problem is with my multiple neck surgeries and now all the nerve damage, it's hard for me to draw, man. Like, so I ended up drawing this for like one of the examples of like the con kit. This is just like a pre-book. I was trying to show
They're
this
pretty
off.
good. You've maintained your
Uh,
skills better than I expected.
yeah, but it took me forever, dude, forever to draw
Okay.
this. So I can't do it. It's not something
Right.
that I could
Right.
produce like I
You can
thought.
come up
Wow,
with a decent looking piece, but it's uh, time prohibitive.
yeah, time prohibitive, and then I don't know all the new technical stuff of like scanning it in and changing it and this and that and refining it because it's still just it's a pencil drawing.
Right. Well,
Um,
and Patty is here. He does artwork for games for his own work and also contracts art out to other creators for their games and modules and whatnot. So bear
yeah,
that
I
in
mean,
mind. If you do get to a point where you want to shop around for artists, we do know some people.
oh yeah, for sure. And I know some people too. It's just that I don't even know at this point what to ask for, what I need. Like I figure, oh well,
Well,
worst comes to
this is
worst, I could throw it out there to the Kickstarter. But I know a
yeah.
lot of
We
people
have
that did Kickstarters, and it's a lot of work. I don't
it's a ton of work. It's a ton of
right.
work. Yeah, it is. And
I'm in bed
here's
by
the
9 o'clock at
thing.
night.
Here's the thing, too. This is getting back to something we've discussed before because we have talked about the content idea a few times.
Right.
Is you gotta have an elevator pitch. You've got to boil that down to something that you can just spurge out in a sentence or two, right? What the vision is, because again, we've talked about it at length. I have a rough
Yeah.
idea, but not a strong idea, not a very
Right. Because it's a
concrete
hard
idea.
concept to grab a hold of and until hopefully, with you asking me questions and stuff like that, it's maybe clarified it a little bit or muddled it up more. I'm not
Well,
sure.
I think it has. It's clarified it, and and
Just,
again, I'm trying to measure it from that pure product angle of all right, what's the need, what problem is this going to fix, and is it going to be good enough that people are willing to pay what you need to charge to make it worthwhile for it?
well, I
You know,
know for sure that Sly Flourish announced that he did, and this was in it while right before I pitched it to Ron.
mhm.
Sly Flourish announced a one-shot a convention-specific adventure for uh, Shadow Dark. That's
Okay.
what he announced. So it's a convention specific adventure for Shadow Dark. And honestly, it picks up on a lot of the same things that I've been talking about. I've just been talking about it at a bigger scale and just one convention adventure for a specific system. I'm talking about a framework that you can apply any system to, including my simple system or my kooky worlds, because you need a simple system for my kooky worlds. Um,
Yeah.
to put out there.
Well, and that's also been my experience is that like in our superhero days to contrast the two extremes, we played champions a lot, which is
Yes.
great, a lot of numbers, a lot of crunchiness, and it is cool in its own way. But truthfully, the better game is the Marvel
Oh,
superhero
for
game.
sure.
How light, fast,
We
easy
had way more fun
things
playing
keep
that.
moving. Yeah, yeah. We don't. You don't need a trigonometry or algebra, and that's to its benefit.
Or a best friend who just did that naturally.
Yeah.
Because I remember my champions character. I would just go to Adam with a concept, and he would
Yes.
get all the points for me, and then nothing I had ever worked. And then I spent the rest of my time buying off all the disadvantages
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah. I
activation
want.
rules and
Yeah. Yeah. You can sit down and design Batman with a 250 point character in Champions. It's just it's it will work one time out of 10 and it'll take a 4 round delayed effect and I can only do it twice and yeah, but I afforded every gadget that Batman has ever used in the comics. I have it on my sheet.
So tell me, I'm gonna turn the tables on you. Tell me your favorite story of you and I role playing together. It could be any game, any system. Just it was a game that you and I were at together, whether you were running it, I was running it, whatever. Your favorite story.
Okay, shit, man, where do we go? So this was one that Adam reminded me of. Adam was running AD&D Second Edition for us, and me, you, and Jason were playing as usual. And like we normally do, we came up with these just idiot savant sort of weirdo misfit characters. And you were playing a dwarf named Arn Buttergut who refused to wear armor because
Right.
you had this you told you I have a really
Tattoo.
cool chest tattoo,
Yeah, I remember.
but I don't want to have an armor class of 10. Right. So you were like, I want armor on my arms. And you kept arguing with Adam because, well, there's going to be straps connecting the armor cars. No, I don't want it covering my tattoo. It can't cover my tattoo. So that was, I swear you even decided to go, well, then screw it. I'm going without armor. And
Yeah,
you
because
were a
it was when they put out those splat books and they had like the armor you could get from the arena fighting and stuff like that, pit fighting. So you could get the shoulder pauldrons or whatever.
Yeah. And it was around the time Jason was playing Ken the Wild Mage.
Oh man, that was such a great character.
Who was based off of
Fish, the
Michael
movie
Palin's
Fish. Yeah,
character
Michael.
from A Fish
Fish
Called
called Wanda.
Wanda. It's Ken coming
Yeah,
to kill me. And the story we hodgepodged in there on him was that he's actually just a regular mage, but it's wild magic because he's got a stutter.
What was the one?
And
Didn't you say you wrote something I did into a storyline or into your history of your game or something?
not a specific thing. Tark became a fixture in my campaign world because the way you played him, he's just this kind of crazy, brash, hot-headed dwarven fighter who also is megalomaniacal. So, which is like when you first made the character, you called him Tark the Incredible. It's like,
Right.
we're not calling you that. You're right, and and eventually,
Yeah. By the way, you remember when you taught me how to write my name?
4th or 5th level, you said, "I'm now Emperor Tark the Incredible." Why? Because you found a really spiffy cloak you liked, and you decided that made you an emperor now. So I took that Emperor Norton kind of level of crazy and brought it into my campaign world, and he's now, in the main kingdom, he's the undisputed ruler of the dwarves, and they all know that he's fucking crazy. Don't bother him too much. We all know he's crazy, but we just put up with him because he legit took Axfall Citadel back from the Orcish invaders. We have a homeland again for the first time in a generation, and yeah, he's crazy as a loon, and yes, he quite frequently shoots his dignitaries with that black powder pistol he's got.
Flintlock pistol.
It's infamous. He'll be sitting there listening, and when he gets bored, you see his hand migrate to the pistol on his belt. Blam!
Well, I have to give them a sporting chance.
Yeah. I mean, they know the fuse is getting short. But yeah,
I remember collecting. I remember starting off collecting skulls of everything I killed, and eventually I had to have like a bag of holding just to fit them all. And I remember the big argument was, well, you had to boil the heads down or whatever. So I was like, oh, fine, I'll cook the heads up, and I'm gonna eat them. And then he was like, you can't eat them. It's goblin meat or whatever. And I'm like, I'm eating them anyway. And he was like, roll for poison. Like, if you would make me roll for poison every
time. Food poisoning.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing. I've heard so many war stories in games of stuff like that where, I did this thing and then, the DM made me save against food poisoning and it really sucked and I never did it again. Yours is like, man, he made me save against food poisoning and it really sucked. So I did it again the next time.
Every
time after that.
Time.
And after that.
Because I figured he would wear down eventually.
And which he did. I believe he stopped asking you to roll that save versus poison. I don't remember.
I think I ran out of room, man. Like I had so many skulls at one point that I had to stop taking them all. I had I was fitting like giant, trying to fit like giant skulls in a bag of holding and stuff like that.
Yes. So yeah, back to that other story. The character I was playing was the gnome cleric.
Yeah.
I was
from the north.
And that was the first time I went absolutely bonkers and was talking in the third person. Aha! Nanook hears something behind us. Nanook will turn and see what it is. Nanook has been stabbed by a goblin.
That's right. Goth speaks in third person as well.
Yes. Yeah. it's a little used technique, but it definitely has its place in the role playing toolkit.
Yeah, I think that's why they kept bringing me back because I was funny. Because I was, not there to be, and I was like a heavy hitter fighter, but
Mhm.
whatever. I had a great time. I had a great
Well,
blast.
and over the years, though, watching that made me gravitate towards fighters myself, because if I'm at a D&D table, I like having a nice straightforward function during the combat. But when combat's not happening, I'm free to role play and just do whatever I want.
Right,
So
right.
that's where I have a character. If he's into brewing, I'm going to be over in the corner, you know, asking the brewer questions about how he the tricks of his trade or whatnot.
Now you finally see my love of playing fighters.
Mm-hmm.
In fifth edition, I made him a barbarian, and I figured out that they kind of pushes you into different paths, and there were paths that I didn't want to go. Like I want to be my own character, not what that character does.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the only
It's a
problem
delicate
hang up I
balance.
had.
Like third edition was this perfect balance of absolute customizability and pick and choose your options a la carte for your character. And second edition was definitely more in that vein than first edition. But it definitely seems like now it's more like, rather than you being able to assemble your build out of the parts you want, you choose one of those 4 subclasses, and that
Right.
sets your trajectory from then on. I'm
Which
not
if
sure how
you're
I feel about that.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like it because I didn't feel like any of the paths fit me quite as well as I wanted them to, or that
Right.
character's
At which
path
point you
that I
go, well, is it even a barbarian I want to play, or is it some form of fighter or ranger or something like that? I mean, Goth, since he was so focused on punching shit, I kind of wondered if monk was the right path for him, the right build.
No, I like the rage portion of the barbarian, and having I think I gained armor class. He, he was more of a barbarian than he was a monk because if you remember, his history
I
was supposed to
recall
be
that from his background. That
yeah,
was
he was supposed to be captured by goblins and made to fight for entertainment, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So he never really learned any kind of dwarven traditions and whatnot.
He thinks
unlike
he
Tark, unlike Tark, who was like your stereotypical dwarf at the time.
yes,
I had
ultra patriotic dwarf. I mean, it's like he was as dwarf as a dwarf could get, and if you had to choose between a chaotic evil dwarf and a lawful good elf, that dwarf is your buddy. That's the way it
and
goes.
yeah, because he started out with the axe and a crossbow until like I could never hit anything with that stupid crossbow.
Yes, you give up on it pretty early.
Because what it did that one goblin, then I shoved the whole crossbow right down his neck.
Yes, yeah, that's one of my favorite stories. Is there was a whole long combat. We were low level, third, fourth level, something like that in that campaign, and you were being harassed the entire battle with a goblin with a +1 crossbow.
Oh right, it was his
And it was a
crossbow.
magic
Right.
crossbow, and then we finally got the battle, and you got that little bastard, and we were looking at each other, going, "Well, it's our first magic weapon we found, or something like that. Somebody's got to use it, right?" And we all looked at each other. None of us was even proficient in crossbow, and we're like, "Well, shit, I just had a weapon proficiency. It's going to be 3 more levels before I see another
Right,
one.
right,
And even if I do, I mean, I'm not going to spend it on crossbow. I'm already
right.
proficient in a longbow, or whatever I got going on." So it was like, so it was our first time, as so much happens in the older editions, is, oh, you find a magic weapon that no one's proficient with, so you throw it in the backpack and it just sits there because no one's going to become proficient with it. It was Adam played in that way. In second edition, it was directly stated, or at least heavily implied in the core books, is that no, there's no market for magic items, so that's why
Right,
we're not actually even going to give you solid
right,
prices for them.
right.
That's
Which
a third
I
edition
like.
thing. I tend to like that too. I mean, if it and that's one of the conventions of the game that it has become, a meme of its own over the years, is you have all the stockpile of +1 items that nobody uses anymore, but they're still valuable, so you don't get rid of
Right.
them. It's
except for Tark, who shoved it down a goblin's
Yeah,
throat.
yeah. You cut his head off
Bloody
and
stump.
shoved it down his neck. It's just you were so mad at that guy. Mash up that crossbow and shove it down
I
his little
can't believe you
neck.
just plus one weapon. Yeah, it
So
was good.
yeah, man, so many great memories. I think probably I know it wasn't a real great time for you, but the first time we went LARPing, we went to a vampire LARP in Philadelphia,
Yes.
and we lined up. No idea what we're in store for, or really even how the game works or the rules or anything like that. And I walked up, got my character, and I'm like reading about it, trying to get my hand on there, and I come to you later, and you look at me and you look pretty happy. I'm like, so you got a character? You go, oh yeah, I got a character I like. This is really cool. And I go, what? Why? What? What? He goes, well, I just walked up to the ST and I said, well, I want to play somebody kooky and dangerous. And his eyes lit up and he riffled through the stack and he goes, I got just the guy for you. And that's where you play. You were Curly Joe the Malkavian.
Right.
I remember that. That was a fun one.
I remember trying to buy a bowler hat for that. I
Yeah,
just had
you couldn't find stuff like that.
nah.
Yeah, especially in Philadelphia at the time. We did. There was not a good haberdashery in PA in Philly at the time,
Well,
or
you could get the antique
anywhere in the
ones.
Delaware Valley.
Yeah, they were antique ones set for antique heads. Like not my big dome.
Yeah, yeah, not your. God,
Oblong
what's a great?
dome.
Yeah, kind of an oblong dome. You do actually. Yeah, I mean it's hard to make out the shape of it completely with the background that
Well,
you have.
after the giant scar that I put in my head from jumping down your parents' stairs and smashing my head into
Oh
the.
yeah, I mean not a game experience, but I do
Well,
remember
we were gaming.
we were gaming at the time, and then you
Right.
came stumbling into the room bleeding from the head.
Yeah, with a
And
concussion.
it's like, what happened to you?
And remember, I had long hair, so I wouldn't let them take me. I wouldn't go to the hospital because they would shave my
Right,
head to
right. You
stitch it
didn't
up.
want him to shave your head and put stitches in.
Yeah.
And you spent the whole rest of the session with this
But
big ice pack just sitting on top of your head.
yeah, I took it with
And
me
every
too because
time
it
we
was your
made you
mom's.
laugh, you'd go, ha, 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 ow.
It was like your mom's hand towel had blood all over or whatever. I took that. I had to take that home with me.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it from
yeah.
your mom.
We'll just take it. Well, she won't miss it. It's just one of many.
Yeah, I had to go to work like the next day, and I bent over and passed out. I had to like kneel to get anything. Good
All right,
times when
we're
those
closing in
concussions.
on the last 3
Yes,
minutes here
sir.
of the show. So,
I
what are your
appreciate you
closing
having me.
thoughts, man?
Just get out there and play. Get out there to conventions, find some local group, get online, go to your local library. There's
It's
plenty
true.
of groups in the libraries. Get out there. If you want to experience play, go online and watch people play. If that's I don't watch people play, but I like watching reviews of systems and games and stuff. So that's fun as well. Even
Right.
if you are interested in something like I was with Middle Earth, and I just bought the game to flip through it and see all the monster stats, or I could be a hobbit too, and
Mhm.
that's kind of cool too to experience that fantasy realm in your head.
Exactly. I mean, it's such a truism, but the best game is always the one that you play.
Right.
And if you're having fun, you're doing it right. If people keep showing up to your table week after week, then you are by definition running a successful game, and
I'm
that's
not sure,
the major thing.
and I'm not sure we realized how much of a special thing that we had, that
Yes,
that
yeah,
I
that was
thought I
amazing.
thought would be true forever, but just life.
Yep, yep, and geography is one thing because I picked up and moved halfway across the country, but
And it's
life
hard
is
to make
life.
friends when you're
Even
like
if I had
50.
stayed there, it probably would have happened to us. It happens to everybody eventually. Life
And
just
so
intrudes.
and it's hard to make friends when you get 50 plus, like I'm a
Well,
crotchety old
pros and
man.
challenges. Well, and that's the thing is like here on in the cyberspace and the interwebs, I'm making a lot of new friends in this, doing
Good.
this ever. It's been a great thing and stuff like that.
Dude,
But
I'm super proud of you. I always have been. You
thank
need to
you.
shout out more. You wrote a book. You should be proud of that. Like amazing stuff, dude. Like
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
you wrote your own game system. You what else, dude? What else, man? You got your channel now. Like you are a martial artist. He was, ladies and gentlemen, he was number one in the world at one point in martial arts sparring, ATA martial arts sparring, number one in the world.
Okay, yes, that is
Don't
technically
let
true.
him tell you otherwise. He is somebody.
Well, I mean, they all know
He
I'm
is.
somebody. I mean, it's
He
just,
is also that. What is your title of the moon? You own
I
it,
am the Emperor of the Moon.
Emperor of the Moon, right?
I
Because
am the
I
Emperor of the
am
Moon. And
because
my
I'm
title
the
is
general of all the
it
forces,
is
but
Emperor
I
Moon Claim.
would like to officially, in our last second here, request that it be called the War Department from now on.
The War Department.
Yeah,
Very
the
good.
Moon's Moon Department.
It granted.
Thank
Granted.
you. All right, let's adjourn this. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Ladies and
everybody out
gentlemen,
there.
thank you for tuning in for this episode of John with Jack. And yes, Jack is a top host too. If you cannot get enough of me, which I know you can't, be here next week, Monday, 6 p.m., and we'll bring you another amazing conversation. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.